Hello, everybody. My name is Elliot Waters, and welcome to the Dysregulated podcast. Today is D-Day, or at least D-Day Part A as far as my degree goes. So if you guys aren't aware, I'm currently completing my honours thesis in psychology, and it has just about ruined me. And there will be plenty of episodes dissecting the last 12 months and the impact that this degree has had on me during this time. But I thought today might be a good opportunity to introduce a concept in which I've become very, very accustomed to, and I think a lot of you guys will have as well, this idea of avoidance. So today is all about avoidance and stress, procrastination, all of those great, amazing things. So thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. That would be amazing. And let's get into it. Okay, so what is avoidance? Well, avoidance is essentially saying, I have this task that I need to complete, and it is providing me with lots of stress and anxiety. I know what I'll do. Let's do something else that takes our mind off it, and we'll just forget about it for a little while. Now, that sometimes is actually a good technique to employ to regulate, being the dysregulation podcast, to regulate your emotional responses to some things that you need to do. But it's not a good long-term fix. And unfortunately for me, it has been a very, very long-term fix. So avoidance. Let's do it in the context of this presentation that I have to give today. I think that is a very timely example of what this is all about. So I've obviously known about this presentation for the best part of probably 9 months. I did my slides for the first time yesterday, and I present today. Now, that's horrendous, of course, but this is how I tend to operate. And the reason is because my anxiety is so strong and my stress response is so strong that this is the only way that I can function and get these sorts of tasks done. So let me put it this way. Anxiety in the interim for the 9 months has said, you've got this task, but it's going to be too difficult for you to complete. We're not going to be up to standard. Let's just do something else and not think about it. Okay. Now, over this time, the anxiety starts to rise. So at the beginning, it's like, well, it's months away. It's not a big deal. And to be honest, at that point, it wasn't. But then more recently, the anxiety's risen more because we know it's becoming a big deal and it's getting closer, and there's no real way out of this unless we want to, I guess, take away this idea that we want to complete this degree and be a psychologist. There's a lot wrapped up in it. So we have to tick this box. So the anxiety gets to a certain threshold, I feel, for myself, and it changes. It's like from avoidance to, holy crap, we need to get this done. How could you let yourself waste so much time? We need to do this today. And my anxiety is actually correct. It is exactly right. We do need to do this today. But thanks very much for allowing me to avoid everything up until this point. Jeez. Anyway. So that's what my anxiety does. It sort of buries everything, and then it decides to have a little spurt, and then it brings everything back up again and says, hey, idiot, we should have already done this. Wow, you're screwed now. Yes, tell me something I don't know. Anyway, let's not get wrapped up into those thoughts. So I watched a lecture by Professor Robert Sapolsky, who is not from the University of Newcastle. So I was procrastinating again and avoiding, because there's lectures from my own university I probably should be watching. But anyway, we'll watch some lectures from Stanford University instead. The good news is I've learned a lot from these lectures, which is amazing. So, there's been a bit of positive, which is good. But he was asked a question about procrastination, which essentially we can use interchangeably with avoidance. And he was asked what sorts of procrastination are the worst, or if there's different types of procrastination, I think was the first question. And then what sorts of procrastination are the worst when it comes to elevating stress levels? Okay. He came up with 2 answers for that, or 2 types of procrastination or avoidance. So the first one was the one that isn't quite so bad, but it definitely resonated with me as well. So this is for people with poor time management. So they have this task. They're not very good at understanding how much time needs to be devoted to this task. And then when the due date approaches, oh no, this 2-hour task is actually worth 8. Now I've blown my whole timeline out of whack stress levels go up. Oh my God, this thing is too big. I do not have the capabilities to complete it. Okay, that was the first one. And as someone with ADHD, that definitely resonates. So there's this concept with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is time blindness. So that is where people with ADHD will be pottering around thinking there's all this time in the world. Then all of a sudden look at their watch and go, holy crap, it's 5 p.m. and I haven't done what I needed to do yet. Where did the time go? That is a big problem in ADHD, and it's a big problem of mine. That is for sure. Okay, what was the second one? The second one is the more insidious of the two. This isn't where people have poor time management skills. This is where people actively avoid the tasks and objectives they know they need to be completing. And obviously, this one resonates with me as well. And this is more linked, I think. He didn't mention this, but this is my summation, is that this is linked more closely with anxiety. So that stress response that we know as anxiety. And this is all about, I do not have the capabilities to complete this task. I do not have enough time to complete the task without any logical basis, and I'm not good enough to do this. So what you do, you avoid. Obviously, those are terrible, terrible thoughts. Why would you want to confront that? And why would you want to confirm the possible truth that you're not good enough? So why would you try and complete the task? Let's avoid. Because if we try and complete the task, that sets us up for failure, because it may confirm our thoughts that we are not good enough to complete this task. So it's a very slippery slope here. So people avoid, they procrastinate, they put it off. We don't want to confront that sort of thought right now. We want to avoid that task that has so much symbolized in it, because it's just too much. It's overwhelming. Let's watch lectures from Stanford University instead of your own from the University of Newcastle. Or instead of completing your presentation slides, let's make a podcast episode instead. See, very timely. This is real-time stuff. This isn't me looking back and saying, oh, I used to have this problem, but hey, I'm on the outside of it now. No, we're in it right now. We are in it in real time as you're listening. Oh my God. On my other screen, I actually have one of my slides open about my study measures. It's a nice slide. It's really good. It's a shame that there's a few more I need to complete. But anyway, we'll get there soon. And this is the more insidious one. Time management is sort of a thing and that you can get around with some easy-ish interventions, like keeping a diary of your time, writing down how much time you expect a task to take, slotting it into your weekly sort of calendar, getting all that stuff sort of going, all those peripheral activities. But the sense of stress, anxiety, obviously, as we know, is a bit of a different beast. Some people have anxiety disorders their whole life, hopefully well managed, which they can be, but we know how difficult it can be to manage these things. Anxiety is not something that a Google Calendar is going to fix. And trust me, I say that from experience. Actually, speaking of the Google Calendar, this is how ridiculous it gets. I'll go through a bit of a phase, like an hour or two where I'm like, right, I'm going to organize my life. This happens reasonably frequently, but unfortunately there's no significant length to this sort of way of thinking. So I'll get on Google Calendar, I'll put all my things in, everything looks beautiful. And then I'll come down from that sort of mood back to sort of baseline, which is usually quite unproductive. Then the anxiety will kick in and go, if you open up that Google Calendar, it's going to be full of the things that you need to do that you cannot do. Do not open the Google Calendar. So quite often I'll have a fortnight full of things that I need to do, and it'll be perfect. It's the perfect plan, the perfect blueprint to get through what I need to. But then I won't open it again for another 2 weeks, and there'll be big blanks everywhere because I haven't looked at it, because the anxiety is saying avoid, avoid, avoid. If we look at that calendar, it represents everything that is scary and stressful and all the things that people are expecting of you, etc., etc. So let's just not open it. So that's my experience with Google Calendar. But anyway, I digress. So avoidance has been a real problem for me for a very, very long time. Whether it's laying on my bed, on my phone, mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, or, I should be reading a textbook about my degree, but I'll read a book about psychology that's completely unrelated to what I should actually be doing for my coursework. And that's another thing I want to raise. So much of my life is dedicated to mental health in some form or another, whether it's living with mental illnesses, whether it's, presenting for the Black Dog Institute, doing the podcast, running the Man Walk, talking to people that need help. It's all great stuff. But part of what is so interesting is that I devote so little time to the coursework and my degree that will theoretically get me to the goals that I want to get to. It's amazing how well I am at justifying doing something else that is half related and saying, well, we're not quite doing our lecture slides like we need to be, but we're still doing psychology work. So let's do it. That's fine. All good. And you've got to really be careful of that trap as well. Doing something that is similar, is loosely related, and justifying that is okay. And it can be okay for a little bit, but in the long run, it can cause a lot of troubles. So that's sort of what I'm faced with today. So I've got this presentation to give. I'm doing the podcast instead because that is a bit easier, and it's going to be really difficult. But hopefully it goes okay. If it does, I'll try and get a recording and put it up so people can listen to the amazing research I've done this year. And I do want to make the point. I have devoted some time to this degree and have been able to compile some good research that I think has some implications in the real world, which is important. But there'll be more on that later down the track. So anyway, I thought I'd check in. It's been a few days because I've been extremely overwhelmed because of D-Day 1 and 2. D-Day 2 coming on the 4th of November. So get ready for that episode. Oh, it's going to be a real life meltdown. Can't wait to record all of it and look back and say, geez, look where we've come. We were here and now we're up here. Amazing. All right. So thank you for listening. I hope that explains a little bit about avoidance and procrastination. I will go into it in more depth further down the track. Don't you worry. We've got some guests coming on the show soon, which I'm very, very excited about. But of course, I need to get through this next week and a half, and then it's all go. Oh, wish me luck, everybody. Thank you for listening. Have a good one. See you later.